Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining
Hi,
us on VodTalk.
we are your hosts, Alisha, Ahmed, and Wafa, and we are going to be talking about how climate change has impacted us and how the youth are planning to make a difference.
The term climate change encompasses global warming, but refers to a broader range of changes happening to our planet.
These climate changes have many social impacts, such as causing people to become displaced, poverty, and global food and water shortages. So, today we are going to be joined by Sadiyah and Madina to have a discussion about climate change. Hi,
Hi.
guys.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. How are you, Sadia?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, great. So the first question I want to ask you is, what is climate change? How would you define it in a really simple sentence?
I would say that climate change is the change in the pattern of weather, the change in temperature, and the change in ice sheets and land patterns.
Okay, yeah, that was perfect. And Sadia, would you add anything?
No, I think that was perfect as well.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
she add the examples as well, content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
covered everything. Another thing I would just add is probably the unpredictable weather, like just the crazy weather that it can cause. And yeah, so do you guys know what actually causes that to happen? So what causes the ice sheets, the weather shifts?
Example, pollution.
Yeah, definitely pollution. And Medina?
I would say pollution as well.
Yeah, and who causes pollution?
We humans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A lot of it is like because of the pollution and the greenhouse gases that we cause, it basically causes like a layer which kind of acts as a blanket around the earth, which increases heat, increases temperature on the earth, which is obviously not natural. So the things that we have, such as like ice caps, they're really, really affected by it. And so that's why they're melting, which obviously affects like habitat. So for example, that's why people always like, oh, the polar bears, because the ice caps that they live on are melting. So now they're evidently they're starting to drown, or they're losing their places to live, or etc. etc.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like, obviously we know how it affects, again, like animals like polar bears and stuff. So how do you feel like climate change directly affects us?
So for example, obviously because of climate change, if the ice caps melt, there could be floods, and obviously people in countries that are more easily flooded and are really close to the areas, it's going to be hard for them, to deal with it. Even nowadays, floods in general are so hard for countries to deal with. Obviously, we don't experience it because we don't really get floods. Well, in London, we don't really get floods on that scale.
Definitely.
Obviously, some parts of the UK experience floods, but so that's going to be hard for food, shelter, for little kids. So I think that's one way it could definitely affect us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. Medina, would you add anything?
I think in like warmer countries there could be really intense droughts and really like intense heat waves, and it could be really like challenging for poorer countries because they don't have like the right money or like facilities to like help children or anything.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
100%. It also because of like those extreme changes, it's hard for like growing crops, because obviously in specific countries when your temperature is quite set, you have like specific things that you grow in specific times of the year. But obviously if that's not regular, that's not happening, or for example the floods and the drought, that causes a lot of crops to not grow or to die out. So that's obviously causing further
Yeah. It's,
poverty and
yeah,
starvation for people.
it will
Yeah,
kind of cause a chain reaction because if crops can't be harvested, then that means that there's going to be food shortages. It means that people who need it can't make money from selling their crops, and then it's just going to lead to so many more problems. So climate change definitely has a huge social impact. It's not just like the world around us is changing and we can just live through it, because it's having so many impacts. So do you guys think that it's too late to improve the state of the planet?
I don't think it's too late. I think there's still some stuff as humans we can do to like help the planet. But yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Sadia?
I don't think it's too late to like obviously as Medina said to help change, but I think like the whole world as a collective we started too late. Um
That's true.
and there just hasn't been enough major changes. Like for example, um trying to, keep the oceans clean and stuff. That I feel like that was just too late. The change that, that affected everyone like everyone now thinks about, keeping the ocean clean, whereas like a couple of years ago, even, recently, people didn't really think about it like that. It was just something that if it was discussed, people would, be aware of, but it wouldn't be
Yeah,
something that everyone's thinking of, you know, on a daily. But yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
I
I,
also feel like sorry.
no, you go first. You go
So
first.
I also feel like there's a level of like ignorance when it comes towards it. Like a lot of people refuse to believe that it's real. Um,
Yeah.
whether it's there's so many statistics about it, or there's physical changes you can see in front of you. People will refuse to believe that it's real. People are like, "Oh, Stan, no, climate change is real." But,
Yeah, I
um,
agree with you.
yeah, but what do you feel like? What actions do you feel like we, first of all, as a whole, can take, and then also we as like students, as the youth, as something we can do in our everyday lives? Or, Medina?
I feel like instead of like taking a bus to school, we could like walk to school. We could also like I don't know like eat less like meat or dairy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a big one. That's something that I feel like that's probably one of the most controversial ones, like not eating meat or dairy, because it's a big change, and some people they really, really can't like accept that change. That I think is it like over farming or something? It's called, I forgot the term, but it's the God, it's the greenhouse gas emissions, right, from carbon monoxide from cows. I remember learning about that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a
So
lot of meat
basically,
production.
we should really cut down on meat. And I actually watched a Netflix documentary about overfishing. That's what it's called, overfishing. Sorry, guys. So I feel like I'm waffling so much now. Overfishing is such a big problem because it's again causing damage to the ocean. So and we're gonna eventually run out of fish, and fish are a really important part of the food chain. So if fishes are gone because we've overfished, then it's gonna cause like so many damages to the structure of the environment, and this is something that us as humans need to accept and need to stop eating fish, need to or at least eat less fish and meat. So yeah, what do you guys think of that, Sadia and Medina?
I also think that it's a big generational difference as well. Like, for example, our generation is like the generation of becoming more aware on so many different topics, not just about, climate, race, like so many things. And I feel like in our parents' generation, it's more like a lot of culture and just accepting it is what it is, type of
Yeah,
mentality. Whereas
Yeah,
our generation is more, having more of a voice and putting a step forward and, wanting to make change, and also like us as young people coming together to, make change. Like we have so many protests, so many charities, so many people doing things that actually are helping. Whereas in our parents' generation, they didn't really do that. Well, in my opinion, I don't think they did a lot of that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that plays a big part into, like, as Alisha was saying, it's hard for a lot of people to accept, like eating better and for example, going vegan. A lot of, like, even though our generation, a lot of people are against it, but I feel like it's more in the older generation, because they're
definitely.
just not used to that, and they're very, stubborn into accepting change, and but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the kind of sectional generation that we're in now, right, is kind of trying to fix the past mistakes, but because they're still such a big, obviously they're still in our times, like it's a bit difficult because it's such a big cultural shift.
Yeah,
So it's gonna be more
100%.
difficult to like solve issues like this now and like trying to be more aware of it because they still have the same mentality. But it's gonna be too late if we don't do it now. So
True. So,
um,
what do you think is going to motivate adults or older, that generation gap, to care about the environment?
Um, Honestly, I think it's like children, like, you need to be able to convince your parents. I don't think anyone, is going to be able to convince your parents other than your own children, because obviously, it's our voice that matters to our parents more. Um, and I feel like if you don't have that change, and if you're not changing your parents' views, how do you expect to change other, people in the older generation? So I think that's, for me, that's like the first step that people should be doing, is educating their parents and teaching them. So then obviously it's also word of mouth. You never know, your parents could tell their friends and be like, oh, this is what my son, daughter told me, and it just goes on from there. But yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great. So, Medina, what else would you add?
I feel like, especially with like parents with younger children, I feel like if they realize how climate change affects their younger children, they kind of care a bit more, because it affects like their children and then their grandchildren and everything.
yeah. I feel like a lot of it is just educating them about because
Mm-hmm.
they don't see the impact obviously themselves because they don't feel like they'll like be there to be in the impact. You know what I mean? So make sure like try to educate them on how it's going to affect them and how it's going to affect the rest of like how intense the situation is. So that could help a lot more as well.
I agree.
Anything else to add, guys? Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us in this episode. We really, really hope everyone enjoyed watching this week's episode of Youth Fluent on VodTalk. And we hope this episode has you thinking about our precious environment and how to help the environment and how to just better yourself in general.
Please continue to join us on Youth Fluent, and thank you again for watching. We would love to see you again soon. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment on our platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And please let us know what you'd like to hear about next, because me and Wafa would love to hear from you and see your comments. So thank you. Goodbye
Thank
for now.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't so bad.